That animals don't worry about manners. They will sometimes choose to stay in their body longer because they know their human is going to have a hard time. I've had animals come into my practice and they're on 3 legs and they can't hear and they don't see. And you think, obviously, it's time for them to go. And they go, no, not ready. Not ready. Okay, we honor that. I've had other animals come in where they kind of spring in and they say, get me out of here. This cancer is eating me alive. That's why the veterinarians I love that I get to work with are so open to asking. You know, Miranda, here, will you ask this animal, because we've done what we can do. Will you ask this animal, do they want to stay?
Well, hello, Miranda, and welcome to the podcast. I am so thrilled to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Julia. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have another special guest here.
Yeah, Alice.
Alice.
Right.
Who I want to learn much more about. But I want to start with gratitude. So, Miranda, will you share with us 3 things that you are grateful for today?
I am grateful to be here in the name of the animals and those around us we may see or not see. I am grateful for the opportunity to support whatever comes up. And I'm grateful for the openings that come through from Spirit, supporting the information that needs to come through for people who are listening and animals who are behind them in the same room.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you want to start with a prayer, or do we want to do that later on?
I would love to do a prayer. So, Lord God of all creation, we ask to be filled, surrounded, and protected by loving light. And we ask that as we work today, that we listen with compassion in our hearts and clarity in our eyes and ears so that we know whatever animals need to have heard today is what comes through. With the understanding that all of us gently recalibrate to a higher frequency of ideal health at a cellular level so that we may be more flexible for the times we are experiencing on this planet. So be it. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. There are so many questions I have for you and so much I want to know. And like I was sharing with you just now, well, first of all, I've been just devouring your content and your different interviews on incredible podcasts. I put a story out yesterday on Instagram after we did our session, which was, I don't even have a word for it. It's not mind-blowing. It's not like it was so powerful. It was just so beautiful. And it was the first time that I truly felt like I understood my dog in the last 6 years. I felt like I knew him when he was a puppy, and then after he was diagnosed and had diabetes and lost his sight, and I told you he kind of like disconnected from his body a little bit, I haven't felt connected to him. And our session yesterday, which we'll talk about in a little bit, was like everything I needed and more. And so I shared a little bit about it on Instagram, and I said, I've never done this before. I did a session with Miranda, who is an animal communicator. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to do an interview with her tomorrow on the podcast. And I think I got more responses to this than I have with any question or poll I've put on Instagram. I mean, the questions were flooding in. So I want to share some of those later. But it's clear to me that people are really interested in this and want to know and want to understand. They have a love for their animals, but want to be able to communicate, to know what's actually going on. And that's what you do. So I would love to start with that is, maybe just like what you do and who you work with and who you serve. And then I'd love to go into a little bit of the journey getting here.
Okay. I am an animal and human communications counselor, so I'm a human counselor as well. which means that the conversations between us, the communications between us, can be in real time. And that opens up a lot of freedom. Do the animals speak English? No. However, many of them, because they are exposed to us, understand some of our words, definitely. And one of the things that we do as humans is we picture what we're saying. So if I've had people in the classes that I teach say, how come my dog knew I was going to go for a walk? And invariably someone in the room says, well, because you got out your keys. And the first person said, no, I was just sitting on the edge of my bed. But that person sitting on the edge of their bed was picturing the park they were going to go to. And the dog gets up and goes to the door. And so that's that form of communication, which is part of telepathic communication, we do all the time. Now, one of the challenges is in canid culture, and I use canid culture a lot, so many of us have dogs, and they are here supporting us as well in such a way that it's wonderful to understand more of who they are. One of the things in canid culture is watching us for what we do and taking notes. So they actually pretty much know more about us than we know about them. So knowing that we're picturing what we're doing, and I'll give you an example. If a dog is frightened or aggressive, our tendency is to say, oh, it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to worry, you know? That's because in our human culture, we hold each other when we're stressed. We stroke each other. We look in each other's eyes. In canid culture, when you're touching an animal, you're actually saying, that's what I want you to do, whether you realize it or not. So if you have an animal that is aggressive, you need to have a higher posture, not stiffen, but just a higher posture as a pack leader does.
Oh, wow.
And you decide what you're going to be doing moving forward. So if, as we came in today, meeting your wonderful person who's helping us do all of this, my dog, being female, immediately nailed him to let him know, I respect that you're hierarchical. I respect you're the head of the pack in this room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's a guy. He got it.
Yeah.
He understood that. That's why guys and dogs get along so well. It's beautiful to watch that. So as far as communications go, I came into this life remembering more than most and felt so blessed to do that. But I couldn't understand why people didn't know where they had just been. Like, how can you not know where you'd just been? And at 3 years old, my parents said, honey, that's really nice, but keep it in the house. And at first, I thought there was something wrong with me for a lot of years. Like, why would they tell me that? I didn't realize it was their form of protection.
And are you talking about past lives here, or what do you mean by where you've just been?
Past lives.
Oh, past lives. Okay.
Yeah, past lives. Yeah.
So where your soul has just been.
Yes.
Okay.
And I remember the agreements I made coming into this particular life. And in fact, it was interesting because I think it was about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that I said to my mom, why was the guy who delivered me drunk? And she was absolutely blown away. Because my whole life, they had told me that Uncle Bill was who delivered me. Well, Uncle Bill, who was like an uncle, was on vacation when I was born. But so everyone didn't want me to freak. It just, Uncle Bill delivered you. No, Uncle Bill did not deliver me. The guy who delivered me was drunk. And my mom, even knowing what I do and who I am and what I do, was blown away.
Oh my gosh.
She said, how did you know that? I said, how could I not know that? You know, it's like, so coming in with sensitivities that are still intact and then being told, put a lid on it. Now, my parents were not negative, but they did understand I was very different.
Yeah.
And so their focus of, how do we deal with this child to protect her and yet let her survive or whatever she's going to do. So it was a lifelong lessons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were the other gifts activated? I mean, so you have this remembrance. Are you also different clairs? Are you connecting with your spirit guides? Are you seeing things
Yes. Yes.
all of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And some we don't recognize or don't know how to explain, because some of it is such alternative and other that it's very hard to put into words. For instance, there are more colors than what we see in this environment.
Yeah. In
There-
this dimension or
yes,
okay.
dimensionally, So now, even though I came in with a lot,
Yeah.
what I discovered was, as much as I could devote to one particular skill set, it would evolve. So I learned when it evolved, I was given another, or another opened up larger. And then I would stay with that for a couple of years. So my tool bag got added to along the way, always.
Wow. And do you think, and not to derail this conversation, I'm just so fascinated, but do you think that your soul chose to come here with these gifts intact? Chose not to remember?
No, it's an agreement. I remember.
It's an agree. I mean, chose, to remember is what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I'm part of this.
You're
definitely.
part of this. Okay. So that means probably it's tied to the mission, the purpose is having these gifts activated.
That's the agreements in coming in. At least my experience was almost being handed a sheet. If this is it, there's this. Are you signing this? Are you agreeing to come in?
Wow.
It's like, yeah. But when I got here again in a conscious way, that's why it threw me, saying, how could you not know where you just were? Or what, because isn't everybody, and I think, I sense everybody is, we just may not remember it.
Yeah.
And people have different theories about, well, if you don't remember, then you have to work, and some of it is karma and all of that, which is very valuable.
Yeah.
But it's just that what's exciting now, that Julia, that I find so exciting. So many people are opening their eyes now.
Yeah.
And instead of going, well, she has a gift, so I can't possibly do that, they're saying, I've sensed some of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's expands. She has a gift, so maybe I can tap into my own gifts.
Absolutely.
Versus she has a gift, she's put in a box over here, and I just don't have that gift. It's
exactly.
Okay, so this is so fascinating. So when did your communicating with animals come into play, and what did that journey look like?
Which lifetime?
This lifetime. Oh, well, I don't know. Answer it whatever way you want, I guess.
Well, it's just that I didn't disconnect. So that's why I'm saying, this lifetime as opposed to which.
Oh, okay.
To come in with it intact.
Okay. So I guess
so
first part is which lifetime? Yeah, when did it start?
Well, but that gives a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good hour conversation right there. But I think what you're asking is, when did I realize? And I was realized coming in. So for me, it was, well, if I can't talk about something outside of the house, then should I just not talk? Where are those boundaries? And I don't understand why they are. Because I had enough experience before this lifetime to know not everyone has boundaries.
Yeah.
So how do I deal with that? And so for me, it's interesting. I was looking at a picture of myself yesterday that I'd run across, because I'm in the process of relocating and going through photographs and that sort of thing. And there was a picture of myself at 3 when I was in the garden looking at the very first turtle I ever got. And I was so excited to have that turtle, because before that it was the ladybugs in the garden, and the ladybugs and I, and the snails and all of that. That was life. And I thought, I didn't know why people didn't enjoy them. I didn't understand that. You know?
And are you communicating, like understanding them? Are they saying things to you?
Yeah, they don't. A lot of it is pictures for people who are starting and learning this. A lot of it is pictures, but there's so many different forms of languaging having to do with sensation, having to do with temperature, having to do with breeze. All of what we have has information.
Yeah.
It depends on what we choose to tune in on.
Okay.
And what is our purpose for tuning in? Because there are people who tune in that are not positive, and there are people who are very positive, you know, which is wonderful because a lot opens up with positivity and possibility.
Yeah.
You know.
So what kind of things, just with the ladybugs and the snails and then the turtles, like what kind of images are you seeing? Like, and how?
Well, the ladybugs, this was interesting. I was out in the garden playing with ladybugs, and we were just together, and they were communicating. They were on a mission, what they were doing, and I was watching them and looking at their people. And my mom walked out into the garden, and she said, you have to come inside and get dressed now. And I was very much a tomboy. And so I said, why? And she said, because some very important people are coming. And I thought, so, and the ladybugs said, no, you need to go.
Oh my.
And I said, why? And they said, because these people are very important. So I went inside and I got dressed. The people showed up, and it was my great aunt and my great uncle. My great uncle, the first time I'd met him, was one of the original people to be at and working the opening of King Tut's tomb when it was first discovered.
Wow.
In 1923.
Wow.
And it was much later than 1923, but I didn't know when I would, see them. My parents didn't know when I'd see them again, and I saw them a number of times. But the ladybugs made it, they went, no, you have to. Now, I asked in years following that, why would this be important to the ladybugs?
Yeah.
Like, what would that be? But if you understand any of the sensations and vibrations around just the word Egypt, we all have attachment to star information. And so why would it not be for everyone who sensed it? And see, that when you're asking, like, what did they speak or do they?
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting them to say, you have to go do this.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm doing it, whatever it is. I understand it, but I went. Really glad I did. Wow. Yeah.
So is it an energetic, is it all energy that you're tapping into? Like, I guess because I haven't been able to tap into these gifts, and
that you're aware
that I'm aware of, and I
up until now.
I know that I can, and I think I am, and I've talked about this on the podcast. I think I'm claircognizant, because when I write, it just comes out, and I don't even know like what I'm saying, and then I'm like, oh wow, and then ideas just come through, but I've not been able to yet tap into like any kind of visuals or hearing or, those types of clairs. And it sounds like, from what you've been describing, a lot of animals are clairvoyant, or at least they're speaking in pictures.
It depends on how we believe we source information.
Okay.
So if I were to say to you, do you want to get some information from the wind? And you would say, yeah. Okay. And you would start to then become sensitive just because you allowed the possibility of wind bringing you information.
Oh, wow.
Do you see?
Yeah. Okay.
So what's exciting about that is when we open to possibility, we are not limited to, and it needs to look like, and he has to say, and I need to.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All of that is to the side.
Okay.
So you're not limited. As a matter of fact, you would not be here doing what you're doing if you were limited.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, you would not have found me
No.
if you were not
Yeah,
already
yeah.
doing some animal communication
Yeah.
and human communication.
Yeah. Well, I told you with my dog Bruno, we'd taken him to the vet. This was 6 years ago. To two different types of vets because his weight had just been fluctuating, and they said, just here's this diet dog food, here's this other thing, keep checking up. I'm like, no, something is wrong. And I'd look at him, and I felt like he was trying to tell me, help me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. We're giving you, and then it turns out he was diabetic, and for some reason they didn't see it on the blood test or something, but finally they saw it, and we did the glucose curve, and it was just skyrocketed. But that was the first time that I had felt like, okay, I know something that they're not like doctors and vets aren't picking up on. I can feel it, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. So maybe that's part of, I don't know. It's
No,
gotta
that's
be
excellent.
something.
I mean, one of my favorite things is that I work with, I refer to, and they refer to me, several integrative veterinarians, because they're so excited that there's the possibility of more information, and many of them start utilizing, wait a second, I can feel that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. So going back to your journey, you've had these gifts. You're communicating with all different types of animals. At what point does this turn into something more, where you're helping other people communicate and then turning it into a business? Or was there a vision to create this?
Well, yes and no. I did it for this whole lifetime, as young.
Yeah.
But because my parents they joined ASPR, which is American Society for Psychical Research, when I was 9, because they were thinking there's something going on with this kid.
It was for you.
Yeah, like how do we deal with it? So I was subjected to a lot of openness because they ended up on the board for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
So different people would come to our house to show their wares, if you will, because they wanted to then present to the entire community, but they had to pass the board. They had to see that they were the real deal. So in light of that, I was subjected to a lot of people who were the real deal or who were not. And because I was asleep behind the bookcase, at 10, 11, 12, watching these people. And my mom would sometimes, she'd excuse herself on a coffee break, and she'd say, is he the real deal? Do you think he's the real deal? Yeah. I go, yeah. And I learned so much from that.
Wow.
So as far as my journey, because I was also channeling, all of that was coming in always. But I want to help people because people need the most help.
Yeah.
So I was channeling for people, some who had passed, some who wanted to communicate with those who had passed. And then at 19, I started charging for that. But my teachers, most of whom were not in this particular physical form, said, you need to work with the animals. And I thought, well, but people are the ones who need the most help. And I was shown, yes, but they will listen to more through their animals.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that's a blessing. I get to spend time with animals. How cool is that? Because I already had, and
you
wasn't
had always
supposed to talk about it.
Yeah, and you had always felt a deep connection to animals.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
A lot of deep connections.
This is just making me, this is kind of a sidebar, but it reminds me of that movie. What's the movie where he can hear all the animals? Some silly comedy. I feel like it's Ben Stiller or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm wondering, because you're like, okay, so I'm hearing this from my spirit guides. I'm hearing this. I'm channeling. Have you been just inundated with people trying, and animals and all the beings around you just communicating? Is that just a lot of noise?
That's something that you learn how to deal with, setting boundaries, what you're willing to participate in and what you're not willing to participate in. Because it's true, it can be overwhelming. And it's interesting, this you may chuckle at this, but it's really true. For a while, I got people coming saying, I just want to take a ride on a UFO. And I would say, be careful. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
Many different cultures. And I would end up, people would come back and they'd be totally messed up because they had left themselves wide open. They had all kinds of stuff happening. And so for several years, I was trying to clean that up. And I finally announced, I'm not doing that anymore. That is not why I'm on the planet.
Wow.
That's not my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so that was like late teens that you've started.
Yeah, 19. When
19.
I was 19, when I started charging actually
Yeah.
for what I was doing. So years before that, yeah.
Okay. And just also curious, with these gifts and with it being a time not like today where it's so much more, people are so much more open to this.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for you? It sounds like your parents became pretty supportive, but what about your peers, your teachers? Like, did you have to hide
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I just didn't talk about it because I would see things and experience things of people standing behind me in line at the cash register in the grocery store, and it was just, no, Miranda, no. It's interesting. I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but I was at a gathering for a person who was an extended family member, and she had passed. And I was up in, her daughter, who was, I think, in her 30s at that point, had put this gathering together. And I was up on a balcony looking down, and people were telling stories. And there were a few of us in the balcony just standing, looking down. All of a sudden, I feel someone behind me who's taking their hands and going over my heart chakra from the back. And my instinct, boom, I turned around and caught his hand and I said, never do that without asking first. And he was blown away because his thought was he was doing something really. I was open to what was going on with my dear friend who had passed, was in a very sensitive place. So if I say nothing else today, please, people, just because you can do it doesn't mean you do it. Okay?
Yeah.
Just because you can.
Yeah.
So with everyone opening, it's important, but you don't walk up to someone on the street and go, your dog's complaining, because you don't know what that person has just been through.
Yeah.
And you don't know that relationship. Just because you can hear that doesn't mean that's what the relationship is like.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot watching these people come through the house and doing that, and then working professionally for a lot of years, starting with humans, adding animals, and then watching how the animals would bring their people, which was interesting, And for many years I would say, no, I work with humans and animals, because the truth is, and usually the person would absolutely say it the same I did, the humans are the ones who need the help. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Wow. So many questions about like what you do and how you help people and kind of some of the stories. But I would love to hear, and actually a lot of the questions that came through on Instagram were really around the soul's journey of an animal. And I've had a lot of mediums on this podcast and had a lot of conversations around the human's journey. And someone once said that I think that humans might have their own kind of cycle, and then animals have another. And then I've also heard that we embody in different lifetimes. In one lifetime, we could be an animal or plant in another. I would love to hear from you and maybe a little bit about what that cycle is like, or actually, however you want to answer this, because I think there's so many different ways you could go, and including purpose and mission. But when we think about animals, like, where do their souls come from? That's a deep question. Maybe it's too, I guess, like,
it's not that it's too deep. It's just how much time do we have?
Yeah, I know.
Because I will share with you. I feel our culture has had, until recently, an assumption that somehow an animal is lesser than. Whether, well, I've actually had someone send me, when one of my animals transitioned, a sympathy card. And in it said, oh, I know that, we'll say Spot. I know that Spot was wonderful to you, and I hope that next time he gets to be a human.
Oh.
See, and there's that hierarchy that we're establishing that somehow we're,
Yeah.
And I've said to people for years, if you think we're the highest on the food chain, you haven't met, an Arctic bear.
Yeah.
Like we need to rethink where we've placed ourselves.
Yeah.
What I'm excited about is that's happening now. Mm-hmm. So when you ask me about where does an animal's soul come from, again, we are multi-universal. We have no boundaries.
Yeah.
So it depends on what they want to do, what the purpose is, which you've said both of those before. But also, our planet is changing significantly. And I have to say, because when my chi changes, my nose starts to run a little. So I haven't figured that one out yet. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
Okay.
But I enjoy it because I know it's like. Yeah. But it just depends on what frequency they're in. There's so many among us that because we don't see them, we think we're alone, or we think we're the only ones, or we think. So there are animals who teach for eons without a physical form, because those people are used to it. I mean, indigenous people, bless their hearts, refer to it as the Great Star Nation. And we have a tendency sometimes to lock into, well, is it Pleiadian? Is it so-and-so? And I'm going, come on, people, we got to get bigger. We got to get larger.
Yeah.
And then the question is that really important?
Yeah.
Or is what we're here doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying it's like having red hair.
Right.
How incredible. And how important is that in what we're doing?
Yeah.
It is important, but it's a piece of it.
Yeah. With going to the mission and the purpose, what do you see? Let's just talk about canine culture. I guess domesticated canines that come in. This is kind of a two-part question too. And because I'm literally flooded right now with so many questions for you. It's like I'm trying to just be like, okay, stay focused. The purpose, one is, do they pick their humans? Do they pick the families before? And then two is, what have you seen? And I know that this is also like, it just depends. Every dog is unique. But in general, what are some of the themes in terms of the purpose for why they're coming here and what they're here to teach or learn, or how they're helping expand the consciousness?
So I too am flooded with responses.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know.
The first question you asked was, do animals pick their humans?
Yeah.
She picked me. Now, I'll tell you what's wonderful about that is, and I know there are many humans that are in tune to, this cat just showed up on my door.
Yeah.
I was standing in a pasture looking at horses, and this one came to me, and I knew. Yes, you see, and I knew. The more we support that, the more harmony we will have on this planet. The more harmony we have, the more we get to heal without having to heal. There are easier ways to heal and to become aware if we allow them.
Yeah.
So I remember one time I had this client who was actually very nearby here, and she called me panicking. Oh my God, my son's lizard has escaped and we can't find it. He was in the cage, the glass box, and they were playing and he escaped. And I don't look for lost animals. Why? Because there are other people who are better at it, frankly. However, I had worked with this animal, so I already was in tune with that frequency. So I said, well, okay, I'll give it a try, I'll give it a peek. And I kept seeing this lizard very close by. And I said, hold on, you need to walk outside. Outside. And her son, I think, was about 9 or 10. So he was outside. And I said, actually, this little gecko is right next to your son's knee. And so they were looking and looking. They lifted up a leaf, and there he was. Now, that's not because I'm incredible doing what I'm doing. That's because the frequency and the vibration of those two we need to be together.
Oh, wow.
So from my perspective, if we're more in tune to the frequencies of what we're doing, more comes toward us. I wish people would let animals come to them, as opposed to, I see it online and he's just so great.
Yeah.
Do you know how many border collies are living in apartments? And see, here's the deal. Border collies need to run. The reason they're surrendered is because we keep them not utilizing what they need to do. And it's really challenging.
Yeah.
So
that was our first dog, was a border collie. I am such a dog person, always have been, and I sort of lied to my parents because I'm allergic to dogs. I'm actually not allergic maybe I've kind of gotten over it a little bit, but I was so allergic to my dog Bailey, but we were so connected, and he chose me. I was somehow his favorite in the family. He slept by my bed. And he was with us until he's 17 and a half. And you just saying that picking thing with Bruno, I needed hypoallergenic, and I was like, I really want to adopt, but how do we find a hypoallergenic dog that we can adopt? I don't know if you have any thoughts. So we ended up going to a breeder, and I have guilt about that still. Just
guilt
because
about what?
Going to a breeder and buying a dog when there are so many dogs that can be adopted. Bailey was adopted, and I just feel like this is sort of on responding to what you were saying. I feel like when you adopt a dog, you have that kind of connection. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can have a connection with both, but there's something about feeling like you are helping the dogs that are in need versus playing into this just breeding for commercial purposes.
Well, and you bring up a really good point. So I would like to make a statement about that, which is, if you're going to go to a breeder, let's be really alert to how canid culture develops. It develops with the puppy staying with its mother. 16 weeks.
16.
Anything less than that, and we have more fights in the dog park. We have people who don't know what calming signals are about, which I mentioned to you. We set our animals up for failure. Now, here in America, we have somehow bought into the belief that we need to get them at 8 weeks. Not true, and it's actually detrimental.
Wow, I did not know that.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
But what you can do, because the breeders are saying, Miranda, wait a minute. How are we supposed to deal with this? You pay extra. You offer $100 a week more to get to 16 weeks. But you have to make sure that mom is still in the area. And now you have dogs that are healthier. Their bones have developed more. This is all of this. Their cognitive abilities have developed.
Yeah.
Their instincts are rewarded, not punished.
Yeah. Are they still drinking from their mother at that?
No,
No.
they're weaned. They're eating.
They're eating.
Yeah,
They're eating.
They're eating. They're usually around 4 weeks anyway.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting, and I had no idea about that. What are your thoughts, though, on going to a breeder versus adopting?
Well, if you can go to a breeder and have that happen, you're now adding to a wonderful culture, and you're educating other people about a wonderful culture. Do I believe in rescue? Absolutely, I believe in rescue. But I also want to suggest there are certain rescues. The one in Pasadena is incredible, where they have you fill out a form. I need a dog. I need a dog. And they interview you to find out who you are,
Yeah.
as opposed to, I like the look of that
Yeah.
dog. I've always wanted a collie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, we need to know.
Yeah.
And I wish there were the time to interview now, but we're in a desperate situation. One of the situations we have in, I mean, I will share that where I live, there is a shelter. There's a sign in the window behind the glass that says, if you are here to leave your dog because you believe they'd be happier in another home, go to the building next door where they will be immediately euthanized because we have no more room.
Oh, God.
So what happened in lockdown, which we knew was going to, all the dogs were adopted and now they're getting returned. And so unless people look at it seriously, sign up for positive classes to help those animals. So you're not just, oh, I'm just taking you in, but I'm leaving all day long. And when I get home and walk you, I'm on my cell phone. And even though you've waited all day. So I have a little attitude about that because this animal's been waiting. You said you wanted me and I'm here. And why aren't you helping me? You know, why aren't we? And so it's important.
Yeah.
You know, dog walkers, high school kids who have to run track and get paid for it, practicing. Yes. You know, there are all kinds of creative things you can do.
Yeah. Do you, oh, I can't remember what I was going to say with that. Oh, well, actually, I was going to ask, does that ever come through in your communicating sessions? Like, my owner picked me and now I'm just hanging around and bored all day?
Yeah.
Really? And do you share that with?
I don't edit.
You don't edit, yeah.
Let me be clear. I work for the animal first.
Yeah.
And I have broad shoulders. And I've even had animals, not many of them, but say, why is she here? About me.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. It's okay. And if they don't feel comfortable, we adjust. I just wait and let them till they feel comfortable. And even if they don't want to share, I share. He doesn't want to share. Or she doesn't want, not my job.
Yeah.
Just comes through. So yes, I do say things that maybe people don't want to hear, but they need to know because that's what's being communicated.
Yeah.
It's important that we do that because we've sort of been acting in a certain way that animals should behave more like humans.
Yeah.
And I'm always suggesting, please, people, rest your horses longer. Don't consider that 2 days off a week is good for your horse. I mean, we look at the people who play polo, they work those horses very hard. And guess what? They also turn them out for 2 to 3 months during the year. Not necessarily true with hunter jumpers, dressage, and we need to think about that.
Yeah.
What are we doing for them? Not just because I said so you need to perform. We need to think about, we want them to stay healthy, so let's give them time off. Let's use T-touch on those animals, you know, which is a form of touch with Linda Tellington Jones created. Incredible. She has 26 books, 14 languages. So I'm saying, and there's a lot we can do.
Yeah.
So before you bring an animal in, really think about what's your commitment.
Yeah.
You know, not just because I want to bring someone in and then I'm going to leave them behind.
No.
Yeah.
And this goes back to, actually, I got a little derailed, but with the purpose and the mission of these domesticated animals, what have you seen in terms of?
Well, I will share something that I was working with someone yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it was beautiful what her animal was saying, because he was saying, although there were times he didn't feel fully present, that he felt safe. And when I asked him, why do you feel safe? He said, because he's watched his human family and they take care of each other. And the first example he showed me was the children taking care of the humans. The humans taking care of the children. And he didn't know, he wasn't always aware of where he was, but he said he knew that he was safe because we were all safe. And I will share with you, that's the first time I have had an animal say that the reason they felt safe was because they watched the dynamics of their family. And that's your family.
I know. Oh my God.
And
Just
see,
makes me-
and so even though people go to school and you're working and your husband's working, we look at that dynamic of, yes, and so when we get home, we interact, and we do when we have sandwiches on the couch.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it was beautiful.
Yeah,
You know?
oh, I know. And when you said that, it resonated so much because even though Bruno is self-admittedly a little spacey, and I think a lot of it was the hormonal imbalance, which I bought the gold.
Oh, good. You found
the solid
it.
gold. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found it. That I do. Someone's always home. Our house, there is always someone home, whether it's the kids or me or my husband or the nanny. We're just the house always has, and I know that he feels it. Like I think he loves it. I can just tell, but because there have been times where we had to go to work. We had a dog walker and we weren't there. This was actually before kids. And I could just sense in him, like there was a loneliness. So there is something, even though he's sort of like, not in his best health right now, I know that he's very comforted by everything happening around him.
So you felt a validation.
I
is
felt
what you're
a
saying.
real like it just, it was just resonating. Like that is something that I think he would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to like purpose and the like why they come. I've heard you on podcasts. Like I know that sometimes it's to help heal or to bring love or support. Anything else? Are there ever like, and this just when you were mentioning polo and racing, do any animals come like, I want to be the best horse racer in the country, or is there ever any of that?
Well, it's more about the energetic of the person. That's why I'm saying if we could let the animals choose us,
Yeah.
we just have to put up to the universe. So, yes, in answer to your question, but it comes from if we allow it to happen. So the relationships build as they are together. And I mean, I will share with you that the polo ponies I'm so blessed to work with protect their humans.
Oh, wow.
Now, this is a very serious, dangerous sport.
Yeah.
They're on a 1,000-pound animal, and I tease them when I see the polo players. Tell me, why is it that you're on a 1,000-pound animal and you're sticking a leg between, a board between their legs? Why would you do that? And they laugh because it's dangerous and they're proud. But their horses do these wonderful moves to keep them from being thrown off. They know where that ball goes. Remember, their eyes are on the side.
Yeah.
They need to track it. They're taking their human to it. But when they get close to it, they will sometimes bring their head up to keep their humans from going over their head and splat on the ground.
Wow.
I mean, that kind of intricate communication
Wow.
is built on the T word, the trust muscle. So what you do with the animal when you get it can build and go so far.
Yeah.
And everybody learns from everyone. So yes, there are animals that are on a mission to be with someone. Maybe that animal is not great riding in the car, but they are so attuned to someone who has PTSD that they will lay on top of them naturally when they start to panic. So yes, an answer, all of that is true. They're on a mission, they're there to help. One of the things they said, and it's one of my favorite teaching stories, which is I was so blessed to be able to work with a dog who had been the very first PTSD dog to work with soldiers returning from active duty. Okay, it doesn't get worse than that. There are jobs like that in our, and this guy was a big golden, 16 years old. And the person who was taking care of him, because his human was traveling and filming, brought him because she said, I feel that this dog is ready to go. And so we established that. The dog said yes, he was ready to go like yesterday. And he turned to me and said, "But I have a question for you." And I said, "Me, Miranda?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Sure." He said, "You tell us that you love us. You tell us that you need us, and yet you euthanize us. Tell me, human, who will teach you when we go?"
Wow.
I get chills every time I tell that story. It drives the point home. You depend on us. We're helping you. Let's be clear. We're here and we're helping you. And yet you euthanize us. That's one of the challenges with how expensive in some areas of our country euthanasia has become, or how expensive gelding and spaying and neutering has become. We have to really rethink that, because now we have even more dogs on the street. And if we are not careful and looking ahead of time for, do we want to create more animals? Let's be cognizant of what we are doing. If we're bringing these animals in, we're breeding them, or we're allowing them to be loose and not taking care of it. It's challenging.
Yeah. On the euthanasia subject, I heard you, I can't remember where it was on a podcast or something. It must have been on a podcast, but you were talking about how most humans that you work with will say, "No, I just want my dog to die naturally, in his sleep."
Yeah.
And you're like, well, of course, that's what everybody wants. But sometimes the dog does want to be euthanized.
Absolutely.
So can you share a little bit about that for
Yeah.
someone listening who's grappling with this kind of decision?
Yeah. What's lovely is that animals don't worry about manners. They're not concerned about that. They will sometimes choose to stay in their body longer because they know their human is going to have a hard time.
Oh.
So they will. But when we look at quality of life, I've had animals come into my practice and they're on 3 legs and they can't hear and they don't see. And you think, obviously, it's time for them to go. And they go, "No, not ready. Not ready." Okay, we honor that. I've had other animals come in where they kind of spring in and they say, "Get me out of here. This cancer is eating me alive." That's why the veterinarians I love that I get to work with are so open to asking. "Miranda, here, will you ask this animal, because we've done what we can do. Will you ask this animal, do they want to stay?" I was just working with one actually in Europe where the animal, when I first opened the picture and looked at it and just had them on, said, "How long do you want me to stay like this?" And this was the energy. "How long do you want me to stay like this?" Now, he was not saying, "And I need to go yesterday," but he was being respectful, saying, this is hard. And so what we need to do is ask. There's a caveat to my saying that. I will ask the human, "What would you do if the animal says, 'I need to go tomorrow'?" Because what we never want to do is ask an animal and they say, "Yes, and I need help to go," and have the human say, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." Well, then why did you ask? This is not a cocktail conversation.
No.
Yeah. So, but there are animals who will say, "Yes, I can help you more." Now, this is fascinating, Julia, and what we were talking about, how people are opening up more.
Yeah.
There are animals who I have in the last 5 years seen more animals coming saying, "Yes, I'm having a hard time, and I can help you more out of body."
Wow.
And they have agreements to continue teaching, for the human to talk about what they're learning from their animal, even though they're not in physical form.
Like sort of like a spirit guide?
Well, a teacher, yes.
so-
I mean, many of us have master teachers right by our sides.
like, is the human conscious of it, or
Sometimes they are conscious of it. Sometimes they sense the animal. Sometimes they will call and say, "What's going on? I know something's happening." But usually what happens is people start to feel their animals when they get over, "My animal's gone." No, your animal has just changed form.
Yeah.
And then, depending on what that animal's mission is or what they have to do and what the humans is, sometimes the two of them, the animals and the humans, outgrow their relationship. They've grown on.
Yeah.
They go on.
Yeah.
To other beings, other realms.
And do you going back to reincarnation, have you seen animals that come back as humans?
In a sentence, I have met monks in dogs' bodies.
Monks in dogs' bodies.
And I will share with you that I shared that with a wonderful spiritual teacher of mine in physical form 20 years ago. And we were private, and I said that to him, and he said, Miranda, I wouldn't say that too often. I wouldn't say that. And I thought, that's interesting. He's not ready yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mentioned it to him 2 years ago. I had this friend who said to me 20 years ago that I'd met monks and I really shouldn't. And he said, well, you have to let me grow too.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yes, I have met, as a matter of fact, one story that's coming to mind is a cat that I met who was so frustrated. And the woman said, I don't know what's going on with my cat. I keep telling him not to jump up on the fence. I can't keep him in. He always comes back. He's safe. But he just never seems comfortable. And he seems depressed. So I asked the cat to show me what's going on. He said, do you know how hard it is to have been a human and be in a cat's body?
Oh, my.
And I said, no, actually, tell me. And I said, but you can jump.
Yeah.
You couldn't jump like that as a human. And he said, yeah, but I don't want to be with humans who are asking me to be more human when I'm in a cat's body. It's like,
oh my God.
So we have held the hierarchy to such a thing,
Yeah.
We think of St. Francis, and all of that wonderful embodiment of, yes, if you want to learn, you can learn from a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even touched on foliage and rocks but I mean, if you're open to learning, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm going to grab my phone because I want to read some of the questions that came through.
This is exciting.
Yesterday. Let's see. Because they're still coming through, which is why I didn't write them down. Okay. Okay. So, someone asked about their animal in particular, and maybe you can just say in general why this might happen, but she was saying that her dog attacks every person that comes into her home.
Okay, that's a huge topic.
Yeah,
I would answer it generally.
Yeah, in general.
Just in general, because I would have to actually ask that animal.
Yeah.
We have to look at where that dog is being introduced. So there's something called calming signals, which we'll go into maybe at some point.
Yeah.
But when we look at canine culture, if you watch a dog go through a doorway, they will speed up going through a door, coming in, going out, because they know in a den, instinctually, they can be killed. Going into a den, they don't know what's in there. Going out of their den, they can't see who's waiting. And one of the things we do that drives them crazy is that we have company coming. They knock on the door, which is in that archway. We open the door and we talk to them standing in the doorway. And if that wasn't bad enough, we hug them in the doorway. Now the dogs are freaking out because they know they can be killed if someone gets a hold of an arm or a paw.
Oh, wow.
So they're looking at their human. So we have to be careful that we're not setting them up.
Yeah.
But I would suspect that person probably needs an appointment.
Yeah.
Or at least taking, some of the courses that I teach, because
Yeah.
we need to be aware of
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll link to all of that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. Stephanie said, what is a dog's favorite form of communication?
I don't find that there is one.
No.
It just depends on what the human is open to.
And probably the dog too. Depends
Well,
on the
yeah. In other words, that I apologize for hitting the microphone. I sign sometimes, so
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No.
So
Yeah.
I sit on my hands here. It depends on what both are open to.
Okay.
Dogs try so hard to get a hold of us. So, for instance, my service dog, she's my 4th service dog in 36 years. Real service dog.
Yeah.
So she, without all the equipment that I wear, huge, and all of that, she will alert me to a sound. So if I'm driving and there's a siren, she comes up and bonks me.
Wow.
Now, that's part of her culture, that she knows she can get a hold of me that way. Yeah, and she was trained that way. Okay, she's going to the door. Okay.
Oh.
Hold on.
Is she excited? What is she saying?
Yeah, that tail wag.
Yeah, that seems
She's
like a happy.
excited.
Yeah.
It may be Linda. I don't know. Yeah, how are we doing? Are we?
Oh yeah.
Is that your next person?
Oh no. I'm done. I don't know if they.
I know. Good
Hi,
girl.
Alice. Good girl. You protect. So does she?
Can you alert?
Do you think she?
Alert. Do you see that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Alert.
Oh my.
Good girl.
Oh. Okay. Is someone here?
Yeah, there's 2 around left.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Okay.
Alice.
We'll just can we do like 5 minutes? Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever.
Classes.
So yeah. What were you just? Did you finish what you were saying?
I think I was saying that woman might want to take a course.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, but for the communicating, they can communicate in all different types of ways, depending on.
And it depends on what the human is sensitive to.
Yeah.
Like you were saying with Bruno, you knew something was gone.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was wrong. You didn't know what was but you knew. See, and that's not a dog bonking
No.
you, or flagging down, or peeing on your bed, or
No.
but you felt it.
Yeah.
See, because you're open to those frequencies.
Yeah. Okay, so we have so many other questions. Maybe we could do something later because we're at time right now.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could.
We
could
something
do a
later.
follow up. This has been so incredible, and there's so many other questions that I have, and I'm sure other people will.
Good.
How do people connect with you? What have you got going on in your world? You mentioned your course, your class, and then you've got private sessions.
Yes. So thank you for asking. So yes, I do see clients online. By that I mean on phone, unless they're international.
Okay.
And I would like to say why. The reason why is everyone wants me to be on Zoom with their animals. I don't do that. I used to, because people pick up their cats and hold them up, and the cat is going like this, and then the cat runs away, and the person is not focused.
Yeah.
So they do the send me the pictures. And
Yeah. Yeah.
So the best way to get a hold of me is mirandaalcott.com.
Okay.
If you're interested in the courses, I have 3 levels of courses. There are 6 classes in each course. And that would be mirandaalcottcourses.com. And there's lots of explanations, and we work, so we do all that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Miranda. This has been so wonderful. And thank you, Alice.
Yeah, she's holding the fort down.
Oh,
Yeah.
We'll really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We really have enjoyed this, and
Yeah,
we would love to come again.
Yay!
Yeah,
Thank
we would
you.
love to do that.